Hello and welcome back to the channel, to the first video of 2025. In this one we are looking at the Kosmos Sky Defender LED set. This is my second LED set from this new Kosmos series. They used to call them just Kosmos, I guess. They used to come with a smaller remote and an older application for your mobile phone, and now they have these bigger remotes and the application is new. It's called Kosmos Universe. It looks something like this on your phone, and I believe it's not available for Android, or at least I saw some comments on my previous Kosmos LED set for Exia, which was my first set from this new Kosmos line, of people saying that they weren't able to find this application for the Android phone. I hope it is available for Androids now, but if it's not, I truly hope that they release it soon, because the application is pretty good actually. So as for the kit itself, I was actually quite afraid of dealing with this LED set, because Sky Defender of its own is a pretty complex and difficult build, especially its wings. They demand quite a bit of attention and patience to construct them properly without damage. And I saw some comments on different online communities saying that it's quite a chore to install an LED set onto the complete kit. But actually, let me tell you, it wasn't that difficult at all. It took a few evenings and quite some patience to work through the disassembly. But let me tell you, it actually was not that bad at all. And I think that is because I had a couple of tools to use for disassembly. So I have purchased some time ago, and I fixed it, disassembly kit, I think it was called. Basically, it comes with a set of various plastic tools that you can use to pry open electronic devices, and they are actually very useful to working with the model kits disassembly. So what I used is this one little with a really flat, thin plate in it, as you can see, to sort of kind of squeeze it into the parts where they connect, and to create a small opening. And then you would use something like a regular part separator. This one is, for example, from DSPIA, but any part separator would work, or like a pry tool of a similar type, to then create a bigger opening. And then would use a spudger like this, because it does have the angle and it's quite lengthy, so you can kind of stick it in, kind of waddle around, and it really helped me deal with the wings. And this little plastic hook was actually exceptional in dealing with these purple armor parts on these satellite guns. I don't remember exactly how they are called on the Sky Defender, because the only place you install the LEDs on these things is actually right inside this armor. You have to stick them in on a double-sided tape, so you have to take them off from both sides. Even with this tool, it's a bit of a pain in the butt dealing with that, but you can use it to hook it in from one side and then this tool from the other side, and you just apply equal pressure from both sides and kind of snaps off. Or you can just snap it in from this side and just really pry it open. Be careful if you do this, be careful not to damage the plastic and create stress marks, because obviously if you don't paint your kit and it's a color plastic, you will see stress marks very easily. I was fortunate enough to not damage any of the plastic, and the only real struggle I faced during the disassembly was with the wings, because I completely forgot. Even when I looked at the manual, I somehow did not see that fact, that the wings, they use screws to hold them together. I think I spent about an hour trying to pry it open. I resorted to actually using even a metal tool, and I did damage some of the internal plastic, applying way too much force. And then I just decided to pry open one of these top of the screw cover plugs, one of these things, and I saw a screw head there, and I was like, I'm an absolute idiot. So once I had that unscrewed, it was super easy. Once again, you find the opening, you stick in this really flat, thin tool, and then you just waddle it around carefully. It's plastic on plastic, so you have to really try hard to damage it. And then you use a thicker tool, and then eventually it opens up, and you go ahead and you do your thing. What I will do later in this video is that instead of posting a separate time-lapse build, I will add a section to this video with a voiceover of me installing the LED kit and giving you instructions and pictures on how to do this step by step really easily. It's actually really pretty straightforward installation. You have one LED, one PCB going into the head unit. This is the default head unit. If you have one of the third-party head units, I am not sure if it's compatible with that, and you actually have to modify this too. You have to cut out a little bit of the plastic, but a regular hobby knife does that just fine. It's not that much. Then you install also another LED into the cockpit, but you don't have to disassemble the full torso for that, and I will show you in the step-by-step instruction part of the video how to best open up the torso to install that LED. Then, as I said, you have an LED strip per, let's call it a beam cannon, beam satellite. I don't remember how they call it, I should have looked up. Anyway, and then of course you have LEDs on the wings. They are the biggest, the most complicated step of the project, simply because of the disassembly alone, and you also run quite a few wires inside the wing as a result of that. So you have to be patient managing those wires so that when you close up the wings and you snap them together and you tighten it all up, you don't snap or cut any wires or damage them irreversibly. But once again, it's actually not difficult. There's a lot of empty space inside the wings, and you can use a little bit of blue tack if you have that on hand, or you can use the included double-sided tape because they give you quite a lot of it. So as you can see, my kit has been installed already fully, and there is over maybe a half of the double-sided tape left. So you can just cut out small strips of it to adhere the wires to the inner side of the wing so that they don't wobble around as you try to close it up. Oh yes, and of course there are also LEDs on the weapons of the Sky Defender. They are also pretty straightforward to assemble if you mind the manual, and I'll show you once again in a step-by-step instruction side of the video what steps you need to take, what parts you have to take off first so that it comes off and comes apart very easily. So no problem there at all. As for the LED set itself, it is as per usual. I haven't had yet come across, to be honest with you, a bad Kosmos LED set. Every single one I've installed so far, and I've done quite a few at this stage, have been working really well. They are on for at least 5-7 hours a day. Some of them have been on for 24/7, and they are still as bright. Actually have all of them dimmed down quite a bit, otherwise they are way too bright. And they have a lot of custom functionality for, you know, different effects and stuff like that. I just pick a custom color theme like I have here, for example, and I just keep it static. As for this one, with the newer Kosmos LED sets, they come with the newer remotes, and that remote also allows you to, let's focus on the remote, there we go. This remote allows you to control the groups of LEDs line by line as they are named here. So if I select line 1, for example, and I call it cyan, you will see that the part of the kit will change color. Let's maybe make it white. Line 1, yellow. Something is now yellow. I'm not sure what. Something is. I think it's the wings at the back. Let's check line 2. Let's make it red. Now our guns at the back are red, as you can see there. And line 3 should be these floating thingies. So let's make them green. Yes, they are green, perfect. So you can control all lines color by color. You can also select a line and then cycle through modes. So you can have 3 modes on 3 different lines, or you can select all line and then cycle through modes or custom color schemes. So if I select all line and then press red, you can see everything turns red. It looks not too bad. It doesn't really suit the wings at the end of it because they are quite large and they are green and the LEDs cannot shine through the entire green part of it. So it looks a bit weird, but it really does suit the floating beam cannons and the cannons at the back of it. As for the head unit and the chest part, I don't think the chest part can be, you cannot change the light, I don't believe so. Let's open it up and see if it is changed right now. Bear with me. Let's use one of the tools. Yeah, so it is white. It doesn't seem to be changing color. It is white. It's not very bright white, and it's very smartly, it overhangs the cockpit area and it shines onto the pilot. So even if you have the cockpit of the unit wide open, it will not be shining outside. It will be illuminating the pilot inside, which is really nice touch. So there is also separate on and off one at the bottom of the remote to turn on and off the head unit LED as well as the chest LED, and they have their own modes, selectors, and brightness. The brightness is only like up, and then reset to the lowest option. One thing that might be important to mention is that if you have multiple of these, you have multiple of the same copy of LED sets for Sky Defender, or like me, you have Exia and Sky Defender. Out of the box, every remote that Kosmos supplies you with from the same line can control all the controllers of the same line. So this remote out of the box was able to control this kit as well as my Exia, which was a bit of a problem. So what you can do is you can unplug, like physically disconnect from power, your other sets that you don't want to program, and then you hold this button. I don't know what this button says, but in the manual it states this is the binding button. It's the one with the Chinese symbols, and it's the left one on that. It's only one row that has 2 buttons with Chinese symbols only. So you select that and you hold it for like 10 seconds. Your kit, the one that's connected to power and is from the same line, it will blink like 3 times, and it means that from that moment on, the controller of that kit will only be accepting commands from this remote. So that's how you can pair different remotes with different controllers. So my other controller for Exia, I did that binding with Exia, and I did this binding with this one. So these only control one kit, but at the same time you can make them control multiple kits. So that's, you know, pretty good thing. And as for the application, so it's they come with a few out of the box designs. They seem to be like file names. They didn't bother creating, you know, proper names for them. You can also define your own custom set, and what's really cool about custom set is, as you can see, it goes through lines 1, 2, 3, like we've seen already on the remote, but it also goes through steps. And what steps mean in this case is the number of the LED on the strip. So for example, these LEDs have like 6 steps. So because I have the same colors, they look the same, but if I change the color on this one to green, you can see that the beginning LED has changed its color. And it is really cool, I gotta tell you that. So you can create rainbow effects if you want in this static mode. You cannot make this mode cycle or something like this. I'm not very familiar with the expert mode. I haven't tried that out at all. And there's also music mode. I think you have to play music or load some music here so that it, you know, reacts to audio. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff. I like my own static custom. effects. But yeah, you can make it really pop. If you want to make a light show out of it, it's really cool, really easy to do. And the kit, as you can see, my power bank tells me that this kit draws about 2.6 watts on the static mode. I've seen this, if I put it in, let's go Showtime, basically it tells the kit to go out and cycle through all the modes that it has available. It varies from 1.7 to 4 watts, so it can draw a fair bit of power, and I think right now I'm on the highest brightness. It really shines. You will see it, even in a daylight. And the other thing that I had for this video was I wanted to add a gun. I know that this comes with 2 railguns. I like them at the back, and my plan was to actually buy this. It's a third-party railgun thingy. It's they have a few variants. They have, you know, black and red, this purple and white, and they have white and blue as well. So I saw this and I thought it would be really cool to add like a massive gun to my Sky Defender. But to be honest with you, I was really disappointed by this thing. The plastic of this is entirely ABS. It's not of a very high quality, wasn't a joy to build. It has a bunch of detail to it, but once again, being ABS, you have to top coat it to protect the plastic before you can do anything with it. But as I was building it, my desire to do anything with this thing totally evaporated. One redeeming factor and why most of all I went for this is that it has natively built-in LEDs. So there is an entire like little circuit board that is hidden here, and I was hoping that, you know, all the wire runs are pre-molded in. It's really cool. And it also comes with a actually motor that spins this chamber around. But as I was building it, my desire to do anything with it completely disappeared. And what's the worst part of it is that it cannot be directly powered by USB power. Even though it has a USB-C plug, what that does is actually charging the battery within the kit. So I imagine they did that because they have the motor inside this LED set. So that requires 7 volts. I'm not an electrician. I don't know anything about that stuff, to be honest with you. But from what I saw printed out on the board is that the motor requires 7 volts, USB-C power is 5 volts, and the battery regulator, I guess, can be powered by 5 volts and, you know, charged over time, but the discharge from the battery is 7 volts to power the motor, while the LEDs could have been driven by even less than 5 volts. But because of that, it has to have a full charge on the battery. The battery is pretty much dead out of the box. I have to charge it for a few minutes with my power bank. So it has to charge for a while, then it can work for maybe a few minutes, then it dims, and then it just completely dies. And the lights are not very bright, they're not of very high quality. To be honest with you, I'm not gonna use this gun with my Sky Defender. It falls apart even in my hands. I'm very disappointed in this particular purchase. I think I'll check it off in a box. Maybe one day I'll be brave enough to paint it and do something with it. For now, I just don't even want to look at it. On a positive side, though, the package that it comes in has a full. So you build a full railgun. It can transform. I'm not going to bother doing that. But it also comes with a bunch of extra runners that you can then use to build a stand. It's pretty much an action base, like a third-party action base. Haven't built it yet. I'll just save it in my backlog, and at some point one kit needs a action stand. But my plan was to adapt a Bandai action stand with like a cradle, you know, attach it to the stand here and have the gun float, like make it look like Sky Defender is holding that gun and is pointing it at you. You know, it could have looked really well, but this thing, it's a, you know, even the plastic externally looks like that soap dispenser plastic. It's just not pleasant to deal with. So yeah, if you're looking at one of these, the pictures for them actually look pretty decent. They really sell you well on this thing, but be prepared to have to completely, I guess, close your eyes, put on pink glasses, and not see the quality of the plastic and the quality of the build that this is, and also expect LEDs to be a known thing pretty much, unless you have the expertise and the ability to rewire the LEDs to make them USB powered without a battery needed and all that stuff. Pass. Hard pass on this. I would not buy it again. I caution you to be careful, or, you know, temper your expectations. If you want to buy this thing, the LED set for Sky Defender by Kosmos is a masterpiece. It looks really good. It is just detailed enough. It adds the shine where it can use some shine. They could have gone all out and added a bunch more LEDs to the upper side of the wings. They could have added LEDs to this Falcon thingy. They chose not to. I understand why. It would have been a lot of LEDs, a lot of wires, probably even too much. What they did is perfect. It looks great. It works great. The new remotes and the new application, as an iOS user, love it. It's really easy to work with. One downside though, they didn't include a metal stand-in thing with this kit. Hold on a minute. Usually with the Kosmos LED set you would get something like this. This is from my Unicorn Perfectibility Gundam. You get the, you know, name of the mobile suit. It gives you some detail, says Kosmos. It's nice little shiny metal thing that you can put on a base of your kit as an extra, you know, adds an extra pop to it. I had it for almost all of my LED sets from Kosmos, I think. None for Sky Defender. Why? It was a cool thing to add. You know, you not only know that the LEDs are there because the kit obviously stands out. This little thing was always a nice added bonus. No more. Unfortunate. Very unfortunate, but, you know, I guess it is what it is. The set itself is still worth it for me. I think Sky Defender definitely fits well, and it even adds more to the already amazing kit. One final remark as for the Sky Defender itself. It's been about 9 months since I built mine. It aged really well so far. All the joints are pretty much as stiff as they were, as I remember them being from 9 months ago, or as loose as they were at the time. It's still fairly easy to work with. It's still very intricate because of the amount of gimmicks that it has. It, you know, as you try to pose it around and move it around, you can easily knock off some parts or open up some hatch or, you know, misplace something. One thing though, this was, and so far it's the only set that I've applied metal etchings to, the etching details, and this has quite a few of them. They just fall off as like dead hair. As I was very carefully handling Sky Defender for the Kosmos LED set installation, I have a small pile of these things. Now, I didn't bother looking where they fell off from, but it seems like the adhesive that Einta used for Sky Defender metal etchings details, crap. I'm not sure if it's usual for metal etchings to fall off over time after such a short period of time. These do. Bigger ones seem to stick fairly well. They haven't gone anywhere yet. But the smaller ones, they just shed from this kit. Oh my god, it feels like if you just touch it, one of those metal small details will fall off. So yeah, now I have a little pile of those, but most of them were really, really small. They were under armor or something like that. Like, if you know where to look for them, I don't think you're gonna notice that. But still, figured it would be worth a mention. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the manual part of the video on how to install the LED set and the beauty shots. Once again, a word of warning on the railgun: if you want to buy one of those, know what you're getting yourself into. I didn't, my bad. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Well, not yet a goodbye. We still have the manual part of the video left. Silly me. So I always recommend, if you install an LED set on your kit, is that you assemble the LED set separately and do the full test. So look at the manual, check out the diagram, see how all the wires are supposed to be connected, make sure that you have all the parts, connect them together, so assemble the LED set and connect it to a power to make sure that everything lights up and there is no damage. That also is something that I suggest you do at every step of the installation to find or spot damage as soon as it appears, pretty much. And also you want to be sure that your set is actually working well before you go ahead and install it, otherwise it might be a bit of a waste of your time. I do the same with every LED set that I assemble, even if I make a custom one. Extensive testing at every step is strongly recommended. Also, as part of this, I do not fully insert the small wires and the plugs in their own sockets. I kind of half insert them, and when you disconnect them with these really small thin wires, be careful not to tug at the wire. It's very easy to break them or to disconnect them from their own plugs or sockets. Use some sort of a tool, a small needle or a plastic spudger, to carefully pry open at the socket, at the circuit board, rather than put it on the wire itself. You don't want to break those. They're really small, can be difficult to repair that damage. It would be easier to repair a torn wire in the middle. You can just twist it or solder it together. If it breaks at a socket, not that easy. Anyway, once I made sure that all the LEDs were sound, I proceeded to disassemble the kit, and I decided to give it a good dust. It's been on an open shelf for, 9 months, I think, at this stage, and it collected a fair bit of dust, so I used that opportunity to, give it a bit of a clean. And it was at this stage that I noticed how many of those small metal etching parts were just falling off the kit. There is a couple of pictures that show that it's like a small pile. I don't think I found all of them. They're really small, hard to spot. But the bigger ones, they seem to stick to the kit fairly well. None of them fell off. I didn't have to re-glue them. And the ones that did fall off, as I earlier mentioned, unless you know where to look for them, you don't really know whether they are there or not there. So not that big of a deal. The rest of the kit looks really good. All the joints that were, in more intricate poses are still pretty well. As I mentioned in my original build video, I used the metal joints options for this. They don't have the best option for articulation because metal and plastic doesn't create a lot of friction. If you use POM joints, that's much better. But the metal joints give that occasional added shine into the build. And once the kit was fully disassembled, let's move on to the first part of the installation. In this case, that is a head unit and the torso. So the head unit disassembly is fairly straightforward. There's just a couple of steps that you can reverse from the manual. So first you will take off the top head cover, the white triangle looking part. Then you will remove the V-fin, then you remove the kind of front-facing horns, then you remove the main surrounding top of the head armor two-layer part. Be careful with that one because the purple plastic on top of the white plastic on the last step is actually very, very thin, so it's very easy to create stress marks there. It didn't require any pry tools for me to disassemble that, but still, watch out, it might sometimes, require a little bit of a finessing to separate that. Then once you have that disassembled, the front armor piece, the actual face of the kit, it requires small modification. As you can see here on the pictures, there is a little bit of front face in plastic that you need to cut out. A hobby knife does a very good job doing that. It's very tiny amount of plastic that you need to cut out, so you don't need a full saw or anything like that, or a Dremel. But if you have, really fine disc Dremel, you can do that. Plastic knife, hobby knife is more than sufficient here. And once you have that prepared, the part of the LED set that's in the instruction manual pointed out to be used for the head, it just fits exactly into the head unit. Use a little bit of double-sided adhesive tape to fix it in place, and then it all snaps back together very easily. And of course, as per usual, once you are done assembling the part, double check that the LEDs are still working. And also, I will add the link in the description for the YouTube video that I was myself referencing for the LED installation. They do a really good job showing how the LEDs are installed, but they don't show pretty much at all how the kit is disassembled. I don't want to redo what they've done. I think they've done a spectacular job showing the kit, LED kit installation. I want to give you new information that concerns the disassembly of an already completed kit. And next we move on to the torso unit LED installation. So the easiest way to disassemble the torso that I found was following these steps. First, you remove the rear armor. There are 3 purple bluish pieces that you need to remove. Once that is removed, you can then remove the backside backpack and these flip up shoulder armor parts. That one is much easier to take off. It's just one big bag. In my case especially, I use the metal joint option, so not that much friction, so they come apart fairly easily. Then you can flip up the top of the shoulders armor parts. They do this opening gimmick, so you don't need to disconnect them, you just flip them up. And then you use one of your plastic, less like thinner, narrower spudgers to work kind of work in between the cockpit assembly, as you can see on the picture, and the main body. There is, I think, 6 pegs that connect that, so it takes a little bit of finessing to work it. But be patient, slowly work your tool into the opening, make it larger and larger, work it from both angles at the same time, so there is no uneven pressure. And it will give, you don't actually need to remove the front and side purple armor. You don't need to remove the front kind of vent gray or white armor. It all comes apart fairly easily. Once it is all disassembled, the result will look something like this. It's not that many parts, and as I said, the cockpit area, actual entire assembly, you don't need to take it apart in order to disconnect it from the body. You can disconnect it altogether, and you can see there is actually a fair amount of space inside the torso, so running just 2 wires is very, very easy. You want to make sure that you run the wires on the sides of the main torso joint rather than on top or beneath it, just so that when you later on play with the kit or pose it, you don't get anything pinched or cut. And one thing to watch out for is that when you run the wires outside, you run them on the opposite sides of the joint, so that when you close in the rear assembly, it doesn't pinch the wires. It's very easy to pinch those wires, so just be very careful, take your time, be patient. But because also the rear lower back armor has those little like wing openings, it makes wire managing very, very easy. And so the end result is actually a fairly straightforward wire management. The head unit's wire can run through the the neck assembly, and the neck, like top of the chest neck attachment area, has a couple of slit openings, and you can see in the linked video how to run the wire through that. It fits through very easily. Fishing the wire out of it can be a bit of a tedious process, but just grab some tweezers and you know, shine some light into the torso, and you'll be able to fish it out and wire manage it very easily. So yeah, and for the reassembly of the chest unit, just reverse the steps. You attach the cockpit assembly first, then you attach the rear main assembly, and then you attach the armor parts. It's not really, you don't need to take those assemblies apart. You can if you want to, but you're not even risking any damage, because the way it all assembled is that you can apply pressure to the inner frame when you try to pry it open. So just be patient, work your spudger through the opening between the main body assembly and the cockpit assembly, and it will give. Next we move on to the railguns. So each railgun receives a single strip of LED lights, and the disassembly of the railguns is actually very simple. You first take off the white long armor parts and the rear under the arm armor part, because they kind of hold it together. And one more part on top of it, the blue plated plastic right above the circular bit. You have to take that off before you try to separate the two main components of the railgun. The separation itself, what I found easiest is using that really thin spudger to kind of create a smaller opening, and then working a bigger part separator into that thin area, and you work the pressure equally throughout the entire part. You don't just create one opening at one end and you just try to rip it apart there. That will break it, so don't do that. Once the parts are separated, the video shows pretty well how they want you to run the wires, and you can kind of clearly see the channel. However, there are a couple of areas in that channel through which the wire needs to be run that have plastic inner reinforcement. So what I did is that I created small channels in those two reinforcement places with my hobby knife, so that I could not only run the wire clearly and without any fear of having it pinched once the part is reassembled, but also wire managed. I used just a tiny bit of blue tack to hold the wire in place, and then the wire comes out at the area right in front of the handle where the kit would usually grab it. So it's fairly easy to wire manage it. It's not that easy to spot it as well, and when you do reassemble the part, you can make sure that it snaps together easily, especially if you create that custom channel for the wire to run. Do not apply too much pressure for the two main parts of the railguns at the point of the exit, unless you create a channel there, because they won't fully fit together. However, it is absolutely unnoticeable. All the armor parts slide back in place and you don't even know that there is a wire. And then when you grab the kit, there is a wire extender, so you can, you don't have to run the short wire to the power supply. There are wire extenders that you use to do that. And yeah, this is super easy part of the installation. Next we have the floating beam cannons. This is actually the easiest and at the same time the most tedious part of this LED set installation. The easiest because there is only one part that you need to take off in order to install the LEDs. The most tedious is because that part can be difficult to take off and you have to do it 6 times, so anything repetitive can be a bit annoying. However, as I mentioned earlier, is if you have one of these pry opening tools, they're pretty easy to find. You can get that iFixit kit that I use myself, or I'm sure you can find in an electronics repair store on AliExpress, for example, a bunch of alternatives of similar purpose. But basically you grab that plastic hook tool on one side of these armor bits that need to come off, and then you apply some pressure. You basically work it out of the fit, and then you just hold it with a finger and do the same on the other side, and then the part comes off really easily. It just snaps off. The point being is that you need to break it out of its settle sort of on both sides, and then you can just pull it off. If you have your kit obviously painted or top coated like I do, be very patient with this, because your tool sliding off will damage your coat, be the top coat or paint most likely. And do not apply too much pressure in one spot when you try to pry these open, because if you don't have this painted right, I'm sure paint would cover a stress mark, but these being purple plastic, a stress mark that is always white makes it very obvious. So just be patient, try it once, it doesn't work, try it again, try different angles. The regular part separator I find a bit too bulky, and it's difficult to get a proper angle with it, while this hook tool, it kind of works against the main body of the beam cannon, so it's much easier to create an opening with that. And the attachment of LEDs is super straightforward. You just take one of the double-sided tape strips, you stick it on the inside as the video demonstrates, you put the LED set there. Then you can either choose to put diffuser now, or you can assemble the part and then put the diffuser in. I did it both ways. I think that the easiest was to put the diffuser in before the reassembly and using a little bit of blue tack to hold it in place, but the other way around also works. And last but not least, we have the wings, the main parts of the backpack where the LEDs are installed. These took me way longer than I thought they would, and as it turned out, that was because I'm an idiot. I kept on trying to pry them open using more tools and more force, time over time, until I just decided to check what was under those circular covers on the main joint of the wing and realized that they have screws, which I completely forgot about. Once I saw that and unscrewed those screws, the disassembly was super easy. The best way I found to disassemble the wings is that you start working from the tip of the wing. Once again, you apply the thin spodger first, you create a small opening, and then you take that long plastic spodger and you just waddle your way into the wing, which makes it separate very easily. Once the wings are separated, you just take the small winglets of their joints, and all you need to do is insert the LED strips marked left and right according to your own preference. I chose to make sure that those LEDs PCBs are on the inside of the backpack, so that when you look at it from the front you don't see them. Some might prefer some other, it depends on the pose you want to display it in, really. And what I also found to be quite useful is that when you have to, once you've installed those LEDs on these little wings, you need to kind of bend them over so the PCB is not visible over the green transparent part. I used a little bit of double-sided tape on each to adhere them to the white armor parts, so they are stuck snugly there and they are not trying to work their way out and be visible. As for the gold part, extra LED that goes into the wing, there is a lot of room to wire manage that. The wings are very spacious on the inside, and there is this very clear area where this LED needs to be installed. There is no kind of installation place for it, so what I used is once again a little bit of double-sided tape to fix it in place like this. Then you bend the PCB twice actually to create the appropriate angle. As always, if you bend the PCB, you have to be very careful not to tear it. So to do that, you have to apply equal pressure. You don't want to have a flat angle. You just want to have it like a very, very, very small circle, but it has to be a softer angle, not a very aggressive one. And then the end result should have this LED stick out on top of the wing where the gold kind of exhaust part will go later over the two tubes. If you have that, then you've achieved the right result. The rest of it, reattachment of the small wings, is really straightforward. You kind of want to run the wires on the inside as much as you can. You have an option to use really short wires here. So on these smaller wings, you want to use on the top and the middle shorter wires, and on the bottom one you have to use slightly longer wire, but they have very little slack to them, and all the slack they have is to allow you to articulate those. But the wires most likely will be visible. You can try going over the top and glue them in place or stick them in place internally so they're completely invisible. In my mind, in my view, it's not that big of a deal. It almost kind of adds to the aesthetic of the kit, like the power wires running through it. I don't mind them in this case all that much. And the rest of the disassembly, once again, if you feel like there are loose wires inside the wing and you're afraid that once you try to reassemble the main parts of the wing, you will damage some wires, use a little bit of double-sided tape or blue tack if you have that on hand to sort of hold them in place. It's not bad if that stays within a kit. It's not like it's gonna deteriorate it. But it's gonna, give you a peace of mind. It's gonna make reassembly easier, and overall, I personally do that just to make it easier to do something or build something. So I don't see any problem with that. And yeah, the second wing was super fast and easy to build because I knew about the screws. One word of caution though is taking off those screw covers. These are two plastic bits that cover the screw holes. If you have really thin metal tweezers or maybe a blade to kind of work it under the gray cover of the screw, because it's a very visible part, you want to try to avoid damaging it. It will be very, very visible. So what I used one of my thin tweezers to just create a tiny opening, and then I used my plastic tools to properly open it up. So just be extra patient with that, otherwise you might end up having very visible and noticeable damage to the wings. The rest of it is you come up with the pose that you like. You test and retest it again. Once you know the pose and which wires you want to use for which gun or attachment, I would suggest doing another test before the final assembly. And I had an idea in mind what I wanted to do. As I mentioned in the review part of this video, I was going to build a railgun to go with this. So my original goal or idea was to have the railguns at the back of the kit, just in its, like I had it in its original pose. But when the railgun ended up being a complete disappointment, what I ended up doing is actually grabbing the both railguns that come with Sky Defender in its hands and posing it with them. So I swapped out some wires. I tried to run them in a bit of a less obvious way, and yeah, the rest is super easy. You just grab the remote or you grab the application on your phone for the Kosmos universe, and you go ham. You can create custom modes. You can use one of several dozen preset modes. You can have static custom color schemes. Really, as I said, these kits, as far as I'm aware, are very durable. I have had some for over a year that are on almost all the time. I don't see any burnout yet. I don't see any demon yet. I don't see any, breaks over time yet. The only time I've ever had a Kosmos LED set break on me was a snap of a wire, something like that, due to a user error because I was trying to repose the kit or something like that, and I ended up breaking the wires. And it's something that, you know, I was able to repair gladly. But just a word of caution, any kit, when you wire it with an LED set, you know, it makes it more sensitive to pose changes and stuff like that. And I really hope that you find this manual part, kind of guide part of the video useful. I hope it helps you install the Kosmos LED set for your Sky Defender in case it is already complete. As mentioned earlier in this part of the video, there is a video that I referenced that shows how to exactly install all of the LEDs. I think they did a great job creating that video. I didn't want to take any of their credits or redo what they did, so I'm gonna post a link to that video in the description, and you can use this video in conjunction with that video to know how to best disassemble your Sky Defender, how to install the Kosmos LEDs, and you know, have a really good time doing that. Other than that, I really hope you enjoyed the beauty shots at the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.